Hear the rain riding on the glass, every silver line a thread. The train window fairy turns into your dream. Welcome aboard. Keep your breath slow, your shoulders soft, and your eyes half closed. Warm lamps, quiet rails, gentle words. We're already on the path to calm, peaceful sleep. The night train moved like a slow thought across the countryside. Rain threaded the dark. It stitched itself to the glass with patient hands. Beads formed, slid, met, parted, made soft sounds like whispers folded into wool. Inside the carriage, the light was low and warm. The seats were deep. The air smelled faintly of tea and damp coats. Somewhere, a hinge sighed. Somewhere, a suitcase settled. The rails hummed in a quiet, even line, steady as a heartbeat at rest. A sleepless traveler sat by the window. Their shoulders held a small, familiar tension, like a scarf tied a little too tight. They watched the rain draw gentle paths down the pane. Each path shone silver when the carriage lamp touched it. Each path crossed another path and made a tiny star. The traveler breathed in, breathed out. The night was soft and slow. Outside, fields slid by. They were more idea than field, blurred and blue, peaceful and vague, a watercolor of horizon and hedge. Farmhouses appeared and faded, their windows like friendly eyes half asleep. The sky was a dark blanket tucked to the edges of the earth. The rain was a soft hand smoothing it down. The traveler lifted a palm to the glass. Warmth met cool. Skin met rain-chilled pain. A fog of breath blossomed, round and tender, like steam from a gentle kettle. In that small bloom of mist, a glow gathered. It was tiny at first, a silver fleck the size of a pin. Then it widened, the way comfort widens when you find a familiar chair. A figure grew inside the glow, small, light, clear as a bell, and soft as a moth's wing. She was no taller than the traveler's hand, a fairy of windows and water. Her dress was made of rain lines and candlelight. Her hair fell like a fine fringe of drizzle, each strand a shining thread. Her eyes were the color of wet stone, calm, deep, and kind. She balanced on the fold between two slipping droplets, and the glass did not mind at all. "Good evening," she said, in a voice that felt like a quilt being laid over tired knees. The words barely touched the air. They simply arrived, like a gentle dream arriving at the edge of sleep. The traveler did not startle. There was no need. The fairy's presence felt peaceful and true, like a soft rhyme one has always known. The traveler's breath slowed, the shoulders loosened, one small notch at a time. "It is a long night," the fairy said, "and a good night. The rain has come to keep the windows company. May I stitch with it?" The traveler nodded. They were not sure how nodding to a fairy in a pane of glass worked, but it worked. The fairy smiled, and the window glimmered with quiet pleasure. She held a needle of light. It was fine and pale, like a sliver of moon. Thread followed the needle's wake, thin silver thread that was not thread at all, but rain's own thin bones. She placed the point at the top of the pane, where new drops gathered like a choir waiting to sing. The train swayed. The fairy swayed with it. Her feet made no sound, yet the glass sounded soothed. The traveler's breath followed the motion, in as the needle rose, out as it lowered, gentle, soft, peaceful. "You have not been sleeping," the fairy said. It was not a question. It was a kind noticing. Too many thoughts, too many stations inside your head. Doors opening and closing, voices calling names. You wait for your own name, and it does not come. The traveler's eyes warmed. The fairy lifted her needle and began to stitch the first silver line. She drew it slowly, letting a slender droplet thread itself into the path. The line curved like a cresting wave, then rested in a calm inlet near the traveler's reflection. "This is a shoreline," she explained, tapping the gleam with the tip of her needle. "A shoreline at the edge of a quiet sea. If you look at it softly, you will see sand made of moonlight, shells of pearl hush, water moving like sleepy breath. Nothing to do there, no arrivals, only rest." She stitched a second line, parallel to the first, then let the two lines meet and settle into a harbor. The harbor looked small and safe, like a pocket, like a palm, like a held hand. "I am the train window fairy," she said, "and I travel with the rain. I am called when the carriage is warm and the world is wet. I am called by sleepers who have forgotten how to sleep. I stitch the glass, the rain follows my hand, and I sow a simple dream." The traveler watched the harbor grow. At its mouth, a new droplet gathered. It slipped into the wake and became a gentle boat, a boat with no oars and no need for oars. The boat knew the tide would carry it from thought to thought as night required. "Would you like a lantern?" the fairy asked. "Only a small one, only soft silver, nothing too bright. Brightness can feel like worry in the dark." The traveler nodded again. The fairy pricked her finger, not to bleed, but to make light. A quiet pearl formed on the needle's tip. She placed it above the harbor, where the rain had left a round, clear space. The pearl opened like an eye, and then like a flower, and its glow filled the little cove with peaceful pale. "Lantern of Comfort," she announced softly. "That is its name tonight. Names can change, but comfort stays." The train crossed a bridge. The sound changed. It became hollow and slow, a wooden lullaby under steel. The fairy listened, head tilted, as if catching a rhythm written for her alone. "Good," she whispered. "The music has arrived. We will stitch to the music." She began again, line after line, curve after curve. Each stitch matched the train's hush and the rail's silver hum. A shoreline extended to a bay. A bay opened to a lake. The lake held a small island shaped like a sleeping cat. The traveler smiled. The fairy noticed and stitched the island softer so that the smile could lengthen and linger. "When the rain runs downward," she said, "it remembers cloud. When it pauses, it remembers leaf. When it joins another drop, it remembers river. When it rests, it becomes dream." She laid a fingertip on the glass, and the mist of breath made a faint halo around her hand. "You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to become dream." The traveler leaned back. An overhead rack creaked, but kindly. The fabric of the seat cradled hips and spine, the way moss cradles a stone. The traveler's eyes grew heavier at the edges, like books closing very slowly, page to page, without hurry. A station drifted by. Its platform glistened like slate. A lone lamp burned with the meek bravery of a candle in rain. No one boarded, no one left. The train sighed and kept its gentle pace. The fairy glanced outward and nodded, as if greeting an old friend. "There are stations made for goodbyes," she said, "and stations made for beginning again. This one is a station for quiet kindness. Somewhere, on some night, two strangers will share a wool blanket here. They will not speak, and that will be kind. Tonight it is empty, and that is kind as well." Her needle drew 3 small arcs near the lantern. They nested like sleeping spoons. These are waves that never trouble the shore. They know when to be still. The traveler's chest rose and fell with greater ease now. A deepening softness lived between breaths, like the silence between one rain tick and the next. The fairy turned the needle and wove the arcs into a larger curve, rounding it with patience until it resembled the cup of a hand. "A harbor always needs a hand to bless it," she said. "This is that hand. It holds your quiet." She stood back, if standing back is something one does inside a window, and considered her work. The glass shone with a simple geography of peace. There were no sharp mountains, no cold cliffs, only low hills like folded blankets, only slow water like whispered stories. "We could add a path," she mused. "Not a path to hurry down, a path to look at, a path to imagine, and then to let go." She stitched a narrow trail along the nearest hill. The trail went nowhere in particular. It curved, then curved again, and then faded into the soft blur of the pane's edge. "A thought can be like that," she said gently. "You walk with it for a time, then you let it turn into mist." The traveler's eyes touched each silver feature and rested there. Rested, not with effort, but with the easy trust that night invites. The boat, the lantern, the hand, the island that dreamed like a cat, the harbor that held the heart. "Would you like a sound to keep?" the fairy asked, her voice as soft as wool. A quiet sound, something to carry in your pocket of thought. The traveler did not speak, but their breath answered. The fairy raised her needle, and the needle rang once, like a tiny bell in a deep pillow. At that sound, the window gathered the rain's many murmurs into one peaceful note. It was the note of a warm room on a wet evening. It was the note of slippers on a wooden floor. It was the note of a teacup cooling in a careful hand. "Hold that note," she said. "Let it sit behind your ribs. Let it rock with the train. Let it make a gentle silver home." Outside, hedges bowed with water. Ditches ran like polished thread. The world felt washed and quiet and willing. Inside, the carriage drifted closer to sleep, one passenger at a time, as lids lowered like blinds at dusk. The fairy lowered her needle. She smoothed the lines with the back of her hand. Where she touched, the rain brightened, then settled, then brightened again, like calm breath. "For tonight," she whispered, "we will keep only the softest parts of the world. We will keep only the peaceful shapes. We will keep only the silver things that know how to be kind." The traveler's head leaned gently toward the window, not pressed, only near. Near enough to feel the panes cool and the fairy's light. Near enough to watch a last small droplet choose its path, and slip into the harbor without a splash. Rest, the fairy said. Rest in this first map of soft water. Rest beneath the lantern of comfort. Rest in the quiet hand that holds your harbor. Her words drifted like feathers and came to settle where the traveler kept tired thoughts. They softened there. They loosened. They became the hush between wheels, the hush between heartbeats, the hush inside rain. The train went on. The night went on. The fairy stood watch at the edge of the glass, a silver seamstress in a gentle world. And the traveler, warm and peaceful, let the first silver lines begin their dream. The night kept raining in a soft, peaceful way. Not heavy, not hurried, just a tender, even fall, like a steady lullaby sung by the sky. The train glided along, and the carriage lights glowed low and warm, steady as small hearths. The traveler sat quieter now, shoulders eased, hands folded like sleeping wings. The window held the fairy's silver shoreline, the harbor, the lantern of comfort. Everything felt gentle. Everything felt safe. The fairy's needle of light rested on her shoulder. She lifted it as one might lift a twig for tracing in sand. Tonight, she said, we will listen to the rain as it remembers. Her voice was soft. Her voice was slow. A kindness spoken. What does it remember? The traveler asked, breath a little hushed, a little dreamy. The fairy smiled. All the places it has been, all the soft ways it has fallen. Every droplet is a traveler, like you. Each one carries a small memory of sky, leaf, river, sea. When it reaches the glass, it hums the quiet song of where it came from. She touched the pane with her fingertip. A small mist halo bloomed and then went clear again, as if the glass were breathing, gentle and calm. Listen, she whispered. The traveler leaned closer. Outside, the night wore a veil of silver threads, crisscrossed and kind. The rain ticked and slid. Tick, slide. Tick, slide. Not sharp, not cold. A rhythm like knitting. A rhythm like steady hands folding bed sheets. A rhythm like peaceful work done near lamplight. The fairy lowered her needle to the corner of the window where new drops gathered. Here, she said, is a cloud song. She combed the mist, and the needle made a quiet path, a calm path. Along that path, a line of tiny droplets joined hands. They moved slowly, like children taught to walk in step. Their bodies gleamed. Their faces, if rain has faces, seemed bright and shy. The sound changed. The traveler heard not only the outer rain, but something just beneath it, like a hidden melody. It was simple. It was tender. It was a cloud humming to itself, remembering sunlight filtered through gray, remembering the soft pull that turns mist into pearl. The fairy began to hum along, a note so fine it felt like breath. This is the first lullaby, she said. It is sung by high places. It says, gentle, gentle, gentle. It says, hush, hush, hush. She threaded the cloud song into the shoreline she had already stitched, and the harbor seemed to listen, and the lantern of comfort seemed to glow one shade deeper. The traveler's eyelids softened, the breath slowed, the body felt heavier in a pleasant way, the way a quilt feels when it agrees with you. and you agree with it. Now, a leaf song, the fairy murmured. She drew her needle across the pane in little arcs, like the curve of a leaf's ribs. Droplets lined up along these arcs, pausing on each small crest, gathering, choosing, then slipping with a pleased sigh toward the next rest. The sound was different now, still soft, still peaceful, but with a tiny patter, a gentle pat, as if small fingers were tapping a tabletop to say everything is well. This song was taught by forests, the fairy said. It remembers cool shadows and damp bark, and the soft green dark that isn't frightening, only kind. It teaches patience. It teaches the quiet of roots. It says, wait, rest, grow. The traveler pictured a fern unfolding in slow motion, a low, mossy log warmed by rain, a path that curves and curves and never needs to hurry. The image drifted through the mind like a leaf upon a pond, lazy and light. The train rocked, and cups in the luggage rack gave a faint, friendly clink. A draft hummed along the aisle, neither cold nor warm, simply present, like a cat passing a doorway on silent pause. Somewhere, someone sighed in their sleep. The whole carriage moved inside one slow breath. Now a river song, the fairy said. She set the needle at the top edge of the glass and drew a long, shining line. Other lines joined it, thinner and thinner, tributaries of silver threading into a larger path. The drops traveled that path with small, peaceful haste, not urgent, just sure. The sound shifted again, flowing, longer, more continuous, like a silk ribbon pulled off a spool. This is the lullaby of going forward without effort, she said. The river carries the boat carries the dream carries you, gentle, gentle, peaceful, and sure. The traveler let the thought of the river pass through the body. The shoulders softened another notch. The jaw unclenched the smallest amount. Fingers relaxed and palms warmed. The heart felt like a quiet house with many rooms, all of them lit by low lamps, all of them clean, all of them waiting with friendly chairs. And now, the fairy whispered, the sea. She did not draw a single line for the sea. She breathed upon the glass instead, and the mist opened like a soft curtain. In that veil, the falling rain found its own wide pattern, a slow heave, a slow settle. The sound became the hush of distant surf, stretched thin by miles of night. It was not loud, it was not sad. It was the deep, peaceful breath of a very large world. The sea song tells you that you are small, but not alone, she said. It tells you the world is wide and quiet when it needs to be. It says you can float, you can drift, you can dream. The traveler nodded, though the nod was almost sleep. The fairy watched, pleased, and set her needle aside. Now we weave, she said. We do not stitch new shapes. We let the songs braid themselves. She placed both palms on the glass, the way a seamstress might smooth a cloth. The cloud song, the leaf song, the river song, the sea song, braided without knots. The pain became a gentle loom, and the rain became the thread, and the lullaby became the fabric. The shoreline softened, the harbor widened. The lantern of comfort shone through the weave as if behind gauze. Everything grew a little blur, a kind blur, the kind of blur that makes hard edges rest. The traveler's gaze moved slowly, as though following the fairy's palms. Wherever the fairy smoothed, a calm path appeared for thoughts. Each path led nowhere but ease. Each path looped back to breath. In, out, in, out. Silver in, silver out. Quiet in, quiet out. Do you feel it? The fairy asked. Yes, the traveler said, the word nearly a sigh. Gentle, soft, peaceful. Good, the fairy murmured. The lullabies are inside the rain, and the rain is inside the glass, and the glass is in front of you, and you are here. Here is enough. She smiled and tilted her head toward the carriage. Would you like a cup of warm breath tea while we listen? The traveler did not need the shape of a cup to feel the warmth. The fairy cupped her hands to the pane, and a small oval mist appeared, steamed and kind. Imagine, honey, she said. Imagine chamomile. Imagine a slice of quiet lemon. The traveler lifted the imagined cup, and the wrists loosened with the simple make-believe. The first sip was a thought of sweetness. The second was a thought of patience. The third was a thought of sleep, not yet, but near. Good, the fairy said again, softer. The body understands pretend when pretend is gentle. She tapped the lantern of comfort, and it answered with a silver pulse, patient and slow, matched to the train's sway. The rhythm settled into the traveler's chest, a steady companion. The rain thickened for a moment, then softened again, like a blanket shaken out and laid down smooth. Outside, hedgerows passed in calm procession, dark ribbons on a darker field. Far off, a hill wore a crown of fog. The hill seemed to be sleeping too. Once, the fairy said, I met a drop that remembered being snow. It sang a thumbed wool song, quiet and soft, and full of tiny bright sounds. She drew 3 small asterisks on the mist, and each one chimed as if a silver thimble had kissed it. Another drop remembered being dew on an early apple. It sang a crisp song, but not sharp, just a cool kindness, the way morning kisses a cheek. The traveler smiled. The smile felt unneeded and yet welcome, like an extra pillow you didn't ask for, but are pleased to find. These songs are yours now, the fairy said. When you cannot sleep, you may call them without glass, without rain. You may hum them with your breath. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. 4 notes, 4 rests. Gentle, soft, peaceful, dream. She guided the traveler to breathe with the 4 notes. A slow circle, cloud on the inhale, leaf on the pause, river on the exhale, sea on the rest. The cycle held like a hand. Time became friendly and round. The traveler's thoughts slowed to a walk, then to a sit, then to a lie down under a soft silver sky. A small country halt drifted by outside. 1 wooden bench beneath a little shelter, rain pearl stringing from its edge. A poster in a frame wore a fog of drops. Its colors, softened, looked like a memory of summer. No hurry, no calls. Only the train passing with quiet respect, like a guest closing the door without a click. The fairy listened to the rails. They are singing with us now, she said. They know the tune. The rails hum matched the four-note breath. The whole carriage fell into a gentle accord. Travelers, engine, air, glass, rain, the fairy, the sleepless one, now less sleepless. Will the songs stay when the rain stops? The traveler murmured. They will, the fairy answered. Rain lends them to you, but your heart keeps them. Water loves to be remembered. She lifted the needle again, not to stitch, but to trace a single, long, tender line across the middle of the pane. A calm path for eyes to follow when they wish to wander and not think. This is your path for tonight, she said. A simple line. If you get lost in thought, let your gaze return here. Let it slide along, slow and silver, until you find the harbor again. The traveler followed the line with lazy eyes. The eyelids grew heavier, the lashes damp with the mist of near sleep. The mouth softened into a small crescent of ease. The neck found a kinder angle. The spine remembered how to rest. Good, the fairy breathed. Good and gentle, good and soft. She lowered the needle and set it by the lantern of comfort, where it shone like a little moon on a saucer. She folded her hands and stood watch, a small guardian with drizzle hair and a dress of rain. The lullabies went on, not louder, not quieter, but deeper, like roots sinking into good earth. The carriage felt like a cradle, the world felt like a quilt, the night felt like a friend. The traveler drifted at the edge of dream, not yet across, but ready, peaceful, calm. The window held the woven songs, the map of soft water, the long path back to the harbor. The rain kept stitching, the fairy kept smiling, and the train, steady and silver, sang the quiet night forward. Morning was far away. Night was kind and near. Rain kept its gentle pace, silver and soft. The train moved like a quiet thought along a smooth seam of rails. The carriage glowed low, steady as a small hearth tucked inside the dark. The window still held the shoreline, the harbor, the lantern of comfort. The lullabies hummed within the glass, braided and calm. The traveler breathed with their slow four notes: cloud, leaf, river, sea, and each note seemed to open a door, then close it softly again. Breath in, breath out, quiet in, quiet out. Warmth gathered and stayed. The fairy lifted her needle of light. Her drizzle hair clung in delicate threads, a crown made of rain. She ran a fingertip along the pane and smiled. We have a song, she said, voice low and even. Now, let us draw a map. Not a map for hurrying, not a map for roads and numbers and times. A map for gentle places, a map for soft resting. The traveler's eyes brightened, then softened again, as if a candle had been cupped in careful hands. Where will this map go? They asked. Everywhere that is near, the fairy answered. Everywhere that is already here, just waiting to be named. She rested the needle at the edge of the lantern's glow. When a place is named gently, it becomes more gentle. When we say a soft name, we make a soft promise. She began at the harbor. A silver line lifted like a thread and curved along the pane. The raindrops, polite and pleased, gathered to the needle's wake and arranged themselves without fuss. A small loop formed, then a quiet bay, then a narrow lane that led to a dim shape like a hill folded out of sleep. "This is the lane of lantern footsteps," she whispered. "It is not long. It is not straight. It is the space between one peaceful thought and the next." She touched the loop again until the line shone a shade brighter. "You may walk it with your eyes when a thought feels heavy. The footsteps will carry it more lightly." The traveler traced the loop with a slow gaze. The body answered with a deeper ease, as if a set of keys had been laid down, as if a coat had been unbuttoned, as if the night had said yes. The needle moved on. It rose into a small arch and settled into a gleam that hummed like a moonlit pond. "This is Quiet Bridge," the fairy said. "It does not cross a river. It crosses the worry that says you must finish everything before you rest. Quiet Bridge says, you may rest now and finish later, and the world will keep its shape." The traveler watched a drop pause upon the bridge and then slip, satisfied, into the pond of gleam. The motion was small and whole. The thought behind it was simple and kind. Beyond the bridge, she drew a cluster of tiny arcs. They nestled like feathered cups, pressed together in a warm nest. "Here is the village of folded quilts," she murmured. "The roofs are stitched out of wool and whisper. The windows glow with sleepy gold. Everyone there keeps slippers by the door, and the doors are never loud." The traveler could almost smell the wool, clean and light. The smell of beds aired on a bright day and pulled over a tired body at night. The rain gave a soft pat as if to agree. The fairy did not rush. She turned the needle sideways and made 3 small commas in the mist at the bottom edge of the pane. The commas were quiet and silver and full of pause. "This is the meadow of little commas," she said. "Here, sentences learn to rest. Here, thoughts stop in the middle and find they are enough. You can sit there and watch not much happen in a very comforting way." The traveler smiled at the meadow and felt a sentence inside their head. "Sit down on a grassy comma and take off its shoes." She moved on, up near the top of the pane, where the carriage light touched the rain and set it softly shining. She traced a round, open ring. The ring was thin as a whisper. It circled an emptiness that did not feel empty. "This is the clear room," she said. "Nothing in it needs to be moved. Nothing in it needs to be mended. It is the space you make when you put a worry down and do not pick it up again. It is lined with silver light." The traveler admired the clear room and felt a quiet widen behind the ribs, a space where the rain could sing without echo, a space that was simple and safe. Low on the glass, the fairy added a small door, really just a soft rectangle, opening into a dim patch shaded by the web of lines. "That is the pantry of warm seconds," she said. "It holds the moments you felt peaceful but thought they were too small to keep. We kept them. They are here. You may take one whenever you like. They rest in jars with silver lids." The traveler felt tears rise, not from sadness, only from relief. Relief can be as soft as rain. Relief can be as quiet as a feline yawn. The fairy saw and nodded kindly, as if to say the pantry was always open, as if to say the jars were never counted. The train's sway deepened. Its wheels turned that calm, even rhythm, steady as knitting done by a gentle ant. The carriage breathed. The air smelled faintly of wet wool and wood, and a small, sweet ghost of tea. Night pressed its ear to the window and listened with them. The fairy's needle ticked once, a tiny silver bell. "We have roads of rest," she said. "Now we name the places slowly, so the names may grow soft and true." She pointed to a crescent bay near the lantern. "Bay of tender patience," she said. "The water here waits without hunger. It has time. It has more than enough time." To the round gleam near the bridge, she whispered, "Pond of candle hours." And the pond breathed a small, mellow light, the kind of light that lets you read half a page before sleep and feel you have read a full chapter. She drew a thread that curved into the quilted village and named the square at its heart, Square of Small Kindnesses. A chair stood there in imagination, always turned a little toward the door, always inviting you to sit, always content when you do not. The traveler let the names drift over them. Each name was an exhale. Each name released another small nod. Each name placed a gentle finger on the forehead and smoothed a line away. "Here," the fairy continued, marking a shallow curve along the pane's edge, "is lane of soft goodbyes. It is used only for setting down the day. You may walk to the end of it and say goodnight to what wanted more of you than you could give." She lowered the needle to the pane and held it there. "The lane will not ask for anything back." Down by the meadow of little commas, she scratched a tiny circle and filled it with a dim glow. "Nest of second chances," she said. "If a thought wakes and flutters, we tuck it here. We tell it not now, little bird. You may sleep and try again in the morning." The nest agrees. The bird agrees. The night agrees. Rain ran in thin, peaceful streams. The pane seemed warmer now, not hot, not bright, simply kind. The map looked simple and complete, not finished as a task is finished, but whole the way a lullaby is whole, even if you only hum the first part. "Would you like to travel on the map?" the fairy asked. "We will not leave the seat. We will not leave the train. We will let the window carry us as windows know how." The traveler breathed yes without words. The fairy's dress of rain rustled like silk. "We begin at the harbor," she said. "We always begin at the harbor." She touched the lantern of comfort, and it answered with its slow silver pulse. We watch the boat of thought drift. We watch it go nowhere in a very peaceful way. They followed the lane of lantern footsteps with their eyes. The footsteps did not hurry. They barely pressed the ground. On quiet bridge, the traveler felt a lightness lift, as if a bag had been set down. In the village of folded quilts, the roofs shed gentle beads of rain that slid like little blessings. In the square of small kindnesses, a warm shape placed a shawl around the traveler's shoulders, and the shawl smelled faintly of cedar and sun. Down at the meadow of little commas, the traveler sat for a moment and did not make a sentence. The fairy smiled, her small drizzle smile, and waited with them. No one asked for a reason. No one asked for a plan. The meadow hummed with tiny greens and a low silver hush. They visited the pantry of warm seconds and chose one jar. It was labeled with a neat hand. The time you watched rain on a bus window and felt safe. They unscrewed the silver lid. The second slipped out like a quiet bird. It perched in the traveler's chest and and made a little home out of breath. At last, they reached the clear room. They stood in the doorway and did nothing. Doing nothing was the whole purpose of the room. Doing nothing felt like being forgiven by a kind night. The walls were made of washed sky. The floor was a reflection of the floor. The ceiling did not worry about leaks because the rain loved it and would never hurt it. You see, the fairy whispered, the map leads only to rest. It leads only to soft places that are already yours. She drew the needle in a small circle, sealing a gentle border around the clear room. No ticket needed, she said. No arrival called. The map folds neatly and tucks beneath your ribs. The traveler's eyes were half closed now, lids lowered like blinds at evening. The body leaned without falling, cradled by seat and sway and soft, silver sound. The fairy dimmed the lantern by the smallest shade, not to darken, only to deepen. The light felt like a hand upon the traveler's hair, smoothing once, smoothing twice, smoothing 3 times for luck. Outside, another station drifted by. A cat slept on a parcel cart under the shelter. The cat's fur looked like smoke. Rain ticked on the roof and did not wake it. The platform lamp burned quiet and kind. The fairy set the needle down near the lantern, as one sets a pen beside a letter that is almost finished. She pressed her palms to the pane, one on each side of the map, and the lines grew tenderer, as if settling into a quilt after the last stitch. This is your map of soft places, she said. It is not for finding the world. It is for letting the world find you gently. The traveler murmured a thank you that sounded like sleep. The fairy nodded, as if thanks were a sweet pebble dropped in a clear pond. When your mind wanders, she said, let it wander here. Names will guide it. Quiet will keep it. Silver will bless it. She blew a breath over the glass. The mist rose and fell and cleared, like a curtain that knows when to be open and when to be closed. The map remained. The names remained. The hush remained. Rest, she said, almost silent now. Rest in the bay of tender patience. Rest on quiet bridge. Rest in the clear room where worry cannot speak. Rest in the nest of second chances. Rest with your breath, gentle and soft and peaceful. The train hummed its steady hum. The night held its gentle dark. The rain stitched and stitched the same calm song, and the map of soft places glowed faintly on the window, ready to be read by quiet eyes, ready to be folded into a dream. Rain kept its gentle rhythm. A soft, silver murmur laid over the night. The train moved in a quiet line through hedges and fields, through cuttings and bridges, through places with names and places that were only shapes. Inside the carriage, the air was warm and close, like a cushioned sigh. The traveler sat in an easy fold of the seat, breathing slow, breathing soft, watching the window glow with the fairy's map. The fairy lifted her light needle and stood where lantern and harbor met. Drizzle hair shone in small threads. Her dress was stitched from the very rain that kissed the glass. We have drawn a map of soft places, she said, voice even and low. Now we will gather stories to line it. Stories are the cotton inside the quilt. Stories keep the warmth. Where do they come from? The traveler asked, the words gentle as a yawn. From the stations, said the fairy, smiling at the dark beyond the pane. Stations remember kindness the way windows remember rain. Each platform keeps a few quiet moments folded under the bench slats and in the lamp glow. They will lend us some. We will stitch them into the glass so your dream may rest on them. The rails changed tone as the train neared a small halt. The platform lamp showed itself, a calm pearl in wet air. A bench waited, its wood dark with weather. Rain drew silver beads from the shelter roof. On a low parcel cart, a gray smoke cat slept, as before, as if sleep were its station master's duty. The fairy touched the pane. A circle of mist opened like a soft eye. "Listen," she whispered. "You will hear the station's quiet heart." The first story came as a slow, peaceful unfolding. "A lost glove," the fairy said, tracing the faint shape of a mitten in the fog. "Wool, soft as sheep's breath. One winter evening, it fell between bench and rail. A stranger brought a stick and lifted it up, careful, gentle. He warmed it in his own pocket until its owner returned on the late train. They said only thank you, only a nod. The glove found its pair like a hand finding its home. She stitched a tiny arc beside quiet bridge. It gleamed like a smile left behind on a chair. This stitch is called the pairing stitch," she said. "It reminds the night that halves can find each other." The train slipped on. The cat did not wake. The lamp grew small. Rain held the carriage in a steady hush. At the next station, a larger one with a roof like a folded wing, the fairy breathed a calm breath and formed another soft window of listening. "A thermos," she murmured. "A tin cup, a bench cold as a slate." A traveler came without a scarf, without a hat, with cheeks pink from rain. An older woman, with hands like bread dough and eyes like mild tea, poured 2 cups and held one out. They drank in quiet. Steam rose and made a tiny cloud between them. They parted with a soft thank you, a soft good night. On the pane, near the meadow of little commas, the fairy stitched a little cup, no more than 3 bright drops cupped together. "We call this the sharing cup," she said. "It warms the sentences that stop to rest. It tells them they do not rest alone." The traveler watched and felt the chest loosen, as if a ribbon had been untied. Breath widened, shoulders eased another gentle notch. Outside, the rain softened and thickened by turns, the way a lullaby grows fuller and then thinner and remains the same song. They passed a station that seemed to hover between town and field, a border place with ivy climbing the signal box and a bicycle leaning shyly under the shelter. The fairy listened, her head tilted, drizzle fringe falling across her brow. "Here," she said, "a small boy with a bright red backpack. He had too many thoughts, like a pocket with too many stones." A porter with a kindly stoop took one look and pointed toward the ticket clerk's window, where a moth kept flying in a slow figure 8 around the lamp. "Count its loops," the porter said. "Count to 8 again and again." The boy counted. His shoulders softened. His breath found its slower road. He boarded calm. The fairy set a neat figure 8 beside the lane of lantern footsteps, a loop meeting loop, a gentle knot that refused to tangle. "This is the steady loop," she said. It holds the feet to a friendly pace. The traveler's mouth made a small curve of peace. The lips were quiet as a lamp, warm as small wool. The eyes grew dream-heavy, yet curious, as if listening to rain talk to rain. Farther on, the train slid past a platform where the night had gathered up its people into lineless shapes. Two friends stood under the shelter. One spoke while the other listened, with both hands wrapped around a paper cup. The talking one paused often, searching not for words but for air. The listening one did not fill the pauses. Silence was allowed to settle like a shawl. "Here," the fairy breathed, drawing a long, even thread across the pane, "is the listening line. No interruption, no hurry, no fix, just presence." In the end, the speaker's shoulders lowered, and their laugh, when it came, was soft and true. The line she stitched led very gently from the square of small kindnesses to the clear room. It asked nothing of the eyes, only offered a horizontal rest. The traveler followed it and felt the mind's furniture grow lighter, as if chairs slid themselves out of the way to make space for quiet. At a country stop with a name like a lullaby, the fairy gathered another silver tale. "A suitcase with a broken latch," she murmured. "A raincoat buttoned all the way to the throat. A handful of papers escaping like small white birds. 3 pairs of hands caught them 1, 2, 3, and passed them back without comment, as though passing shells by the shore." No one asked the story. The story was allowed to be nothing more than paper in rain. She set 3 tiny stitches near the pond of candle hours, each a small arc like a cupped hand. "These are the catching hands," she said. "They keep what matters from blowing away, and do not ask to know why it matters." The traveler felt a tender ache, not sharp, not heavy, just the sweet ache that arrives when the world is quiet and kind. Tears came again, and again they were soft, silver, peaceful tears that knew their way and took their time. The fairy saw them and changed nothing. Night can hold tears the way a meadow holds dew. Another station, a coastal one, distant and dim, where the rain smelled faintly of salt. A young couple shared a single umbrella and positioned it to cover an elderly stranger instead. They stood in the drizzle, laughing softly at nothing, holding their shoulders up as if that were a game. The stranger's hat stayed dry. The stranger's smile stayed warm. Umbrella Kindness, the fairy named, placing a small, clear dome above the nest of second chances. It shelters small, fluttering things. It says, "We can be damp, you can be dry." The train's sway deepened. Its engine hummed a lower note. In the quiet carriage, a sleeper turned in their seat and found a better curve. A child, face down on a parent's lap, sighed the sigh of deep, honeyed sleep. The traveler's breath kept its 4 gentle notes, rounding cloud, leaf, river, sea, into a circle that never tired. The fairy pressed her palms wider on the glass. "There are nods too," she said. "Simple nods between strangers. A nod to say, 'After you.' A nod to say, 'I see your tiredness, and I will not add to it.' Such nods seem small, but the night counts them. It lays them like smooth stones at the edges of our thoughts, so the water will not eat the shore." She dotted the map with soft, silver stones along the bay of tender patience. they were almost invisible. And yet, they made the bay feel more held, more rounded, more sure. The traveler let the stories blanket them. Each one was a quiet weight of warmth. Each one pressed the day's edges smooth. The mind drifted where the fairy placed it on a bench, under a lamp, beside a sleeping cat, at a counter with a paper cup, inside a coat that smelled faintly of rain and soap. No urgency, only time, and more than enough time. One more station offered itself, a junction with many lines, many signs, many clocks. A young conductor, wet to the sleeves, paused in his careful hurry. He bent and tied the loose lace of a traveler's boot, swiftly, gently, without a word. "There," he said, as one might calm a skittish horse. "Safe steps." Then he moved on. The fairy drew a small bow near Quiet Bridge, a neat crossing of thread over thread. "This is the safe steps bow," she said. "It keeps the bridge from echoing too loudly. It keeps ankles from worrying." The window now held not only harbors and lanes, not only ponds and fields, but also these tender stitches, these silver keepings of other people's gentle acts. The map felt padded. The map felt lined. The map felt like a coat you put on and find already warm. "Do you feel the quilt growing?" the fairy asked. "I do," the traveler whispered, voice no heavier than a breath on glass. Soft, peaceful, gentle. "Good," the fairy said. "Kindness makes a sound even when no one speaks. It is the hush after a door closes softly. It is the silvery little rest between notes." She touched the listening line again and watched its light steady, calm as a kept promise. Outside, a long viaduct carried the train across a dark, quiet valley. Far below, a stream wound like a silver thread pulled gently through velvet. The rain fell in peaceful veils. The night felt friendly and wide. The fairy smoothed the pane with both hands, as if tucking a child's blanket. "We will sew all these into your dream," she said. "The pairing stitch for finding what was missing, the sharing cup for warming your pauses, the steady loop for counting yourself calm, the listening line for resting your words, the catching hands for keeping what you need, the umbrella kindness for sheltering what flutters, the safe steps bow for crossing without fear." She dimmed the lantern of comfort by a heartbeat, then let it rise again, a slow pulse, a silver breathing. "Let them hold you," she whispered. "Let them make your night soft. Let them make your sleep quiet." The traveler leaned nearer to the glass, but did not touch it. Their eyes drifted from stitch to stitch, from story to story, the way one finger's beads on a rosary of calm. In the square of small kindnesses, a chair waited, always slightly turned toward the door. On the bay of tender patience, the soft stones reached into the water like careful hands. At the nest of second chances, the umbrella kept the small birds dry. The clear room breathed its gentle emptiness. The harbor held its hush. The fairy placed her needle beside the lantern and folded her silvery hands. "Rest," she said, in a voice like a wool blanket unfolded in lamplight. "Let the stations keep watch tonight. Let the rain write their names on the window. Let your dream ride the rails between them, slow and safe." The train carried them onward. The rain kept falling gentle, soft, peaceful, and the window, lined now with quiet kindness, shone like a silver quilt, ready to be drawn up to the traveler's chin and kept there, warm and steady, through the long, sweet drift toward sleep. Rain tapped a soft, steady pattern. The train hummed its low silver note. The carriage kept its warm glow, close and kind, like lamplight folded inside wool. The window held the map of soft places, the harbor, the lantern of comfort, the stitches of quiet kindness. Everything waited, everything breathed. The fairy lifted her needle of light and set it gently down, as one sets a pen beside a letter that can finish itself. Her drizzle hair gleamed in fine, silver threads. Her dress hung easy, woven from rain and hush. She looked at the traveler and smiled a slow, peaceful smile. "Now," she said, "we will make tea." The traveler's hands stirred in a small, contented way, as if they had just remembered the shape of a cup. The breath deepened, then softened. A little warmth rose behind the ribs, ready for comfort. "We will not fetch kettles," the fairy murmured. "We will not strike matches. We will brew with breath and glass and night. It is the tea of warm rain. It is make-believe, but the body believes it well." She faced the window and cupped her small palms to the pane. A soft oval of mist bloomed under her hands. Steam without heat, heat without flame. A gentle, fogged circle that felt like the beginning of a cozy story. She traced the rim of the oval with her fingertip until it shaped itself into a round, quiet bowl. "Here is our cup," she said, porcelain made of happy breath. She drew a tiny handle from the mist, a simple silver ear. Comfort fits a hand here. The train's rhythm slowed the world. Rails sang their lullaby cloud. Leaf, river, sea, 4 notes, 4 rests. The traveler breathed with them, a circle inside a circle, a cup inside a cup. "For water," the fairy said, "we ask the window to lend a little hush." She slid 2 fingers upward, and the falling drops changed their step. They thinned to a fine curtain. They gathered themselves. They gave the cup the sound of soft, near rain, just enough to feel like a kettle beginning to murmur, just enough to say soon. "For warmth," she whispered, "we invite the lantern." She touched the lantern of comfort and coaxed a slow pulse toward the cup. The halo widened, then settled. The mist brightened by one tender shade. The traveler felt that shade on the lips, in the throat, along the chest, as though a beloved mug had been pressed into both hands. "What shall we brew?" the fairy asked, though she already knew. "For gentle sleep, we choose gentle plants." She drew a petal shape in the fog and named it chamomile. The word itself was a yawn wrapped in honey. The petal released a faint sweetness into the mist. Not a scent exactly, a memory of scent, quiet as a dream of fields. Next, she drew the small heart of a leaf. "Lemon balm," she said, and the cup found a shy brightness, like early light on a white curtain, for calm thoughts. A line of rain slid down to agree and rested at the rim as if to listen. She added a long, soft grain and called it oat straw, and it settled the cup with a wholesome ease, like bread and blankets on a kind table. She dusted the surface with a tiny circle. "Cardamom," she said, and then smiled, shaking her head a little. "Only one. Only a thought of spice. Spice must tiptoe at bedtime." The traveler watched the fog cup darken and glow, deepen and calm. The tongue felt warm just to see it. The throat felt grateful, the way a quiet lane feels grateful to receive footsteps that do not hurry. "We sweeten it with patience," the fairy said. "Patience is slow, honey. It pours itself." She drew a thin amber line that fell into the cup and disappeared as if it had always lived there. The tea was ready. Not hot, not cool, just warm. Warm like a low lamp. Warm like wool drying on a chair. Warm like a kind hand across a brow. "Lift it," the fairy whispered. We lift with imagination. We sip with breath. The traveler lifted nothing, yet the hands felt a cup. The wrists felt its weight. The lips felt its edge. They took a slow inhale through a small smile, and the warmth moved in. Honey flowed through the chest. Chamomile climbed the shoulders and loosened them. Lemon balm combed the thoughts like a soft brush. Oat straw patted the inside of the ribs. The single cardamom star winked once and then dimmed into kindness. "Another sip," the fairy said, "for the places that still hold a little edge." The traveler breathed again, deeper. The rails hummed their four-note circle. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. With each note, the tea seemed to touch a room inside the heart and draw the curtains, soft and silver, across the windows of worry. Outside, hedges nodded under the rain. A low stone wall went by, worn smooth by years of weather, friendly as an old face that knows your name. Far off, a farm light glowed and then went back to sleep. The train rocked as a cradle rocks, not to move, but to soothe. "We add milk," the fairy said, in the way that dream adds light to the edges of a thought. She drew a pale spiral into the mist and watched it swirl, then fade into a peaceful evenness. "There," the tea says, "hush." She took a tiny imaginary spoon from her sleeve, moon silver, thimble small, and rested it on the fogged saucer. "Stir 3 times, she instructed. "Once for the day you've finished, once for the night that holds you, once for the morning that will arrive in soft shoes." The traveler stirred with breath and eyelids, left to right, right to left, a slow, kind circle. The spoon made almost no sound. Almost, but not quite. A small chime like a tender bell somewhere deep inside the window. It rang through the map and the stitches and the harbor and touched each name with a little quiet blessing. "Now," the fairy said, "we share." She turned as if to face the carriage and placed a second cup upon the glass. It appeared beside the first as a twin oval of mist. "For the sleeper with the crumpled coat," she whispered. "For the student with the open book. For the parent with the sleeping child on their lap. For the conductor walking softly down the aisle." With each name, a cup gathered itself. With each cup, the lantern widened its pulse, patient and slow, as though a gentle table had been set down the length of the train. "We drink together," the fairy said, quietly. "The rain will do the talking for us." They sipped. The traveler sipped. The imagined conductor sipped as he passed. shoulders easing by a hair. The crumpled coat smoothed its own creases. The open book closed itself at last with a whisper, as if it had found the right page to keep. The sleeping child breathed out a longer breath and sank one shade deeper into sleep. The train gathered all these softenings and made them into a deeper hush. The fairy turned back to the first cup. "We will brew a second pot now," she said. "A small bedside pot for worries that wake at the edge of sleep and pretend to be urgent." Her voice was sympathetic, not stern. Worries deserve gentleness too. She traced a smaller oval. "This one we fill with lavender," she said, drawing tiny spear petals. "For quiet rooms and quiet pillows." She added a breath of vanilla, just a ribbon, so faint it was almost a smile. "For safety." A flake of orange peel, no bigger than a letter. For brightness that does not glare. And the smallest hint of ginger, for warmth enough to face the morning, when morning comes. They sipped the small pot, not to finish it, only to bless it. The fairy placed it on the map, near the nest of second chances. "If a thought flutters loose," she said, "pour it one thimble and tuck it back beneath the umbrella." The traveler's eyelids grew heavier. The chin tipped forward by a friendly fraction and returned, as boats tip and return. The body settled deeper into the seat, as dough settles into a bowl, as a cat settles into the surprise of a sunny square. "Let us make a third," the fairy whispered, "for the breath itself, a kettle you can carry anywhere." She drew no cup this time. She drew a simple oval just above the traveler's heart, then another over the belly, then another lower, all of them soft and silver and clear. Inhale, and the oval warms. Exhale, and it glows. Inhale, and the warm becomes calm. Exhale, and the calm becomes sleep. The traveler followed. The ovals warmed, glowed, and softened in turn. The fairy light of the lantern matched the rhythm. The rails hummed the circle. Cloud, leaf, river, sea, sip, rest, sip, dream, tea leaves, the fairy said softly. "Make patterns at the bottom of cups. We will read ours kindly." She tipped the fog cup toward the traveler, and faint shapes appeared in the thinning mist. "A cottage lamp," she read, and the lantern of comfort shone in agreement. "A little bridge," she read, and quiet bridge answered with a small smile of light. "A nest," she read, and a hush of wings stirred by the silver umbrella. "What does it mean?" the traveler murmured. "It means you are held," the fairy said. "It means the night has room for you, and you have room for the night." The cups began to clear. The mist thinned to a faint halo, and then to a softness that was mostly memory. The warmth, however, stayed. It spread the way a gentle rumor spreads in a kind village. Quietly, steadily, everyone pleased to have heard it. "We will set the kettle on the sill of the window," the fairy said, "so it may sing only when you want it to sing." She drew a small kettle shape near the pond of candle hours, barely there, like a friendly ghost of steam. "You can call it with breath. It will answer with warmth." The traveler closed their eyes for a moment. The lids felt pleasantly heavy. The temples felt soothed, as if two careful thumbs had pressed there and released. The mouth softened into a private crescent of contentment. "Before we put away the spoons," the fairy added, "we sweeten the whole carriage once." She held up the tiny moon-silver spoon and traced a wide, slow arc across the pane. The lantern's pulse widened to match it. The rain, as if in on the plan, eased for a heartbeat, then resumed, softer still. Somewhere in the carriage, a cough turned into a sigh. Somewhere, a zipper finished its small journey and slept. The fairy placed the spoon upon the saucer, and the saucer upon the map. "There," she whispered. "Tea of warm rain, tea of gentle sleep, tea that remembers kindness." Her palms smoothed the glass, 1, 2, 3 times, the way a careful host smooths a tablecloth after laying it down. "Rest now," she said. "Let warmth move where it wishes to move. Let the cup remain even when your hands are empty. Let sweetness linger even when you forget its name." The traveler breathed in and felt chamomile settle like soft straw at the back of the throat. They breathed out and felt lemon balm carry a quiet light down the middle of the body. They breathed in and felt oat straw lay a low, friendly field beneath the heart. They breathed out and felt the single cardamom point its tiny star toward morning and then become night again. Rain kept its peaceful fall. The window kept its silver seam. The train kept its lullaby. And the tea of warm rain imagined, believed, remembered, kept the traveler warm from the inside out, ready to drift from map to harbor, from harbor to lantern, from lantern to dream. Rain kept its soft and silver fall. The train moved like a kind thought through the warm dark. The carriage rested. The window breathed with quiet light. On the glass, the harbor glowed. The map held. The stitches of kindness lay padded and sure. Somewhere a coat sighed on its hook. Somewhere a shoe found a gentler angle on the floor. Everything was peaceful. Everything was slow. The fairy lifted her needle of light. She did not stitch. Not yet. She held the needle upright, like a small moon pinned to a pin. "We have warmth," she said, voice calm as wool. "We have songs and tea. Now we make lanterns, dreams like lanterns, hung along the rain so they may shine softly, one by one." The traveler's eyes opened a little wider, then lowered again. The lids felt heavy in the sweet way lids love. The breath found its 4-note circle cloud, leaf, river, sea, and the circle held like gentle arms. "We will not make bright lanterns," the fairy whispered. "Bright can chatter, bright can hurry. We make slow lanterns. We make dim, kind lanterns. Silver lanterns that carry a quiet wish." She touched the pane above the harbor, where the rain lines converged in a shallow arc. With the tip of the needle, she drew a tiny hook, one curve, simple and neat. The hook caught a droplet, and the droplet held steady, as if pleased to be chosen. The fairy breathed, and the droplet began to glow from within, a small pearl of tender light. "Lantern of comfort," she said. "You know this one." The pearl answered with a slow pulse. It matched the train's sway. It matched the traveler's breath. In, out, silver in, silver out. She moved her needle along the map, following the lane of lantern footsteps. At each gentle bend, she shaped a hook. At each hook, a droplet paused. At each pause, a glow kindled, soft and low, Lantern of Patience, she named at the first bend. Lantern of Quiet Courage at the second. Lantern of Soft Forgiveness at the third. Her voice placed the names like small blankets folded at the foot of a bed. The traveler watched the little lights arrive. They did not crowd. They did not demand. They made a path without asking to be walked. The path looked content just to exist. Lanterns love company, the fairy said, smiling. But they do not gossip. They sit in a friendly hush and let their light meet in the middle. She swept her hand across the window. A long, quiet bridge. 3 shy lights appeared. Lantern of enough, she said. Lantern of later, she said. Lantern of let go. The lights nodded, as lanterns do. A soft bobbing as old as harbors and porches, and quiet nights by gentle doors. Near the meadow of little commas, she hung a cluster that felt like a small silver orchard. Lanterns for pause, she said, touching each with a needle so it chimed the faintest chime. Comma 1, comma 2, comma 3. The chimes were barely sound, more like a feeling of sound. The meadow grew still in a deeper way, as if the grass had lain down. At the square of small kindnesses, she placed 1 lantern only. It glowed steady, not bright, not dim, a true center. Lantern of welcome, she said, for anyone who arrives, including your own tired self. The traveler's face loosened 1 more soft degree, the jaw unclasped, the brow smoothed. The mouth found that private crescent of ease and kept it. Now for the sea, the fairy whispered, looking upward where the pane opened to the idea of wide water. She made a long, low hook, more curve than line. A larger droplet drifted down and settled there like a gentle fruit. Lantern of drift, she named. So you may float along the edges of thought and never catch. Outside, the world agreed. A field rolled by like a sleeping back under a quilt. A copse of trees stood as a group of tall, kind listeners. The rain softened another shade, like breath after a yawn. Lanterns also keep watch, the fairy said. They are small guardians with quiet eyes. She hung one at the door of the clear room. Lantern of quiet boundaries, she said, smoothing the mist until the doorway shone with a thin silver care. No loud thoughts may enter without taking off their shoes. She placed 1 above the nest of second chances. Lantern of gentle return, she said, for thoughts that flutter. It shows them the umbrella and the straw bed. It says, here, little bird. Here, soft bird. Dream now. The traveler followed the lights with eyes that were barely open, but open enough. Each glow pulled the gaze and then released it. Pulled and released. A rocking of sight, a rocking of mind. A rocking that matched the rails, matched the rain, matched the soft weight gathering in arms and legs. Lanterns need fuel, the fairy murmured. They drink from kindness. She laid her palm flat over the stitches gathered from stations. The pairing stitch, the sharing cup, the steady loop, the listening line, the catching hands, the umbrella kindness, the safe steps bow, the lanterns, brightened by the small measure kindness allows. Not more, not less. Right-sized light, true light. She turned to the traveler. Would you like to choose one? The question landed like a feather. No hurry, only an invitation. The traveler's eyes drifted along the window. Comfort glowed nearby, warm as a low lamp. Patience waited further down, silver as an evening bowl. Quiet courage shone like a star covered with lace. Soft forgiveness fell and rose, like a sleeping chest. Enough sat on quiet bridge, calm as a stone warmed by day. Later leaned against the rail, utterly unbothered. Let go dangled just beyond, nodding in rhythm with the carriage sway. The eyes settled on soft forgiveness. The light seemed to understand. It widened, then gentled, and sent a small line of silver toward the traveler's chest. The line touched and dissolved like fine rain. The traveler exhaled and felt a gentle easing, as if a door had been unlatched in a thoughtful house. What did it say? The fairy asked, though she already knew. It said, I may rest even if the day was not perfect, the traveler whispered. It said rest does not need permission from finished things. Good, the fairy said. Lanterns speak plain truth in a soft voice. She lifted the needle and with careful hands hung 3 more as a blessing over the harbor. Lantern of safe return, she named first, the light steady as a small lighthouse that guides boats inward without shining in anyone's eyes. Lantern of gentle sleep, she named second, a deeper silver, almost blue, almost a lullaby by itself. Lantern of sweet dream, she named third, its glow a tender shimmer like a spoon dipped in moonlight. These hang for all travelers, she said, seen or unseen, wakeful or napping. They will not go out. The traveler felt the body grow heavier, but the heaviness was kind. It was the heaviness of a cat agreeing with a lap. It was the heaviness of a folded blanket finding its place. Arms rested, legs rested. The neck learned a better angle. The spine remembered it was not a pillar, but a reed by a gentle stream. Lanterns can move, the fairy added. If a thought grows bright and busy, we draw a lantern nearer. We let it shade the thought. We let it cool the thought. We let it sing the thought to quiet. A thought did lift its head, quick and curious, as thoughts do near sleep. What about it began? The fairy was ready. She guided the lantern of enough across the rain lines. It floated like a soft seed on a small breeze and settled above the thought. Its light said, enough. Its light said, later. Its light said nothing more. The thought blinked, then laid itself down and slept. The window glowed like a gentle, constellated sky, not the sharp sky of cold stars, but a damp, tender sky of porch lamps and fairy lights and paper lanterns on a summer path. Silver, soft, peaceful. Each light knew its place. Each place knew its light. Let your eyes choose a path, the fairy whispered. Lantern to lantern, slow as a drowsy firefly. Comfort to patience, patience to quiet courage to soft forgiveness to enough, enough to gentle sleep. She spoke the path as a lullaby. The traveler followed, not moving, only letting sight wander. With each stop, breath deepened. With each stop, warmth spread. Outside, A small town passed, windows dim, street shining like a silver ribbon laid out to cool. A dog, no more than a hint of shape, changed sleeping sides in a doorway and sighed. A baker's sign, painted with a loaf and a moon, swung once and came to rest. The rain wrote a soft, even script across the roofs. The train read it with care. The fairy hung one last lantern, the tiniest of all. She placed it beside the listening line, just where it met the clear room. Lantern of silence, she said. It did not glow like the others. It glowed like absence glows, like space prepared for something kind. It made the surrounding lights softer by giving them room. There, she breathed. The night has its gentle stars. The traveler's eyes closed and opened, like a tide that has almost decided to be full. The lids were heavy, the breath was slow, the body was warm, the mind was quiet. The heart felt lined with soft silver, as if a patient tailor had finished a hidden seam. If you wake before morning, the fairy said, you may take a lantern in your pocket of thought. It weighs nothing. It lights without heat. It opens without sound. Name it as you need. Comfort, patience, quiet courage, soft forgiveness, enough, gentle sleep, sweet dream, quiet boundaries, gentle return, silence. Any will do, all will do. The traveler nodded, the tiniest nod. The nod one gives at the edge of sleep when a blanket is tucked. The fairy tucked the window with both palms, smoothing once, smoothing twice, smoothing a third time for luck and for love. The lantern settled into their soft breathing. The rain met them with a peaceful tick. The rails matched them with a calm hum. Cloud, leaf, river, sea, lantern, 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 dream, rest, the fairy whispered, now hardly more than rain herself. Rest under these quiet lights. Rest as they keep watch. Rest while the night and I carry you forward, gentle and safe. The train slid on, a cradle on silver tracks. The window glowed with dreams hung like lanterns, and the traveler, warm and peaceful, drifted nearer to sleep, lit by small, soft stars that asked for nothing and offered only quiet light. Rain kept writing its silver script across the night. The train moved through it like a soft pen, steady and sure. The carriage breathed in warm hush. The lanterns glowed along the window. Comfort, patience, quiet courage, soft forgiveness. Enough, gentle sleep, small stars in a kind sky. The traveler rested deep in the seat, breathing slow, breathing soft, eyes half closed, eyes peaceful. The fairy stood by the lantern of comfort, her drizzle hair a fine fringe of rainlit thread. She lifted her needle of light, then paused, listening to the rhythm of the rails. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. The needle lowered again, not for stitching, but for writing. Tonight, she said, we will send letters, not to the world, to the heart that has been awake too long. The traveler's lips curved in a drowsy smile, as if they knew the address already. We write on the window, the fairy murmured. We write on the breath. We write in the mist that knows how to appear and how to fade. Letters that say gentle things. Letters that say soft things. Letters that say peaceful things. Words that return even when they vanish. Words that glow even when they rest. She pressed a tiny palm to the pane. A tender bloom of fog opened beneath her touch. In that fog, she drew her first line with the needle, slow and clear, each letter shaped like a small moon. The words read, "You are safe." The fairy stepped back. The letters held. They shone silver for a breath, then softened, then disappeared into the glass. The traveler's chest rose with a deep inhale, then fell into a deeper exhale. The words were gone to sight, but not gone. They had slipped inward, like light slipping under a door. Again, the fairy whispered. She breathed upon a fresh patch of glass. A new cloud of mist appeared oval, gentle, ready. She wrote with her fingertip this time, each letter round and slow. Rest is allowed. The letters brightened. The lantern of enough nodded from quiet bridge. The rain gave one soft pat, then resumed its even fall. The message faded, then returned, faint but faithful. The way tide returns, the way morning returns, the way kindness returns when called. The traveler's shoulders settled another shade. The jaw unhooked. The tongue lay easy behind the teeth, quiet as a small shell on a calm shore. The fairy looked to the lanterns and chose soft forgiveness to hang near her writing hand. Its dim silver helped the lines flow. "Some letters," she said, "are best written with forgiveness in the ink." She breathed again upon the pane and traced. "You did enough for today." The words stayed longer. They glowed at the edges, then turned to soft water, then returned as a gentle echo, as if the glass had learned the sentence and wanted to say it back. The traveler watched them blur and reappear and blur again, like a quiet wave that knows how to hush itself. She moved along the map, choosing small spaces where letters could land without crowding the soft geography. Near the meadow of little commas, she wrote, "Pause is wisdom." Near the pantry of warm seconds, "Keep what warms you." By the nest of second chances, "Try again tomorrow." Each message tender, each message slow, each message short, as if the words had put on slippers. They came, they softened, they returned. They rested in the traveler's chest like folded notes in a pocket, ready to be touched with 2 fingers in the dark. The train rocked, and the window rocked with it. The letters swayed slightly and seemed to enjoy the motion, as if being read by the rails themselves. The carriage settled deeper into hush. A sleeper's breath turned to a little snore, then softened to a breeze in a pine. A book slipped to the floor like a leaf and did not mind the landing. The fairy changed her hand. She used the needle's fine tip and wrote smaller words, words a heart could hold all at once. Soft, gentle, peaceful, dream. Each word like a single bead on a string. She threaded them, left to right, right to left, back again, letting the traveler's gaze follow in slow loops. The eyes moved but did not hurry. The mind followed but did not fuss. The breath answered with its 4 quiet notes. "Shall we write your name?" the fairy asked. And though the traveler did not speak, the window brightened as if it had heard a yes. The fairy wrote the traveler's name in a curve that matched the lane of lantern footsteps, then tucked beneath it, "Beloved by night." The letters did not boast. They did not glow bright. They were simple, like neat stitches inside a seam unseen by others, known by the one who wears the coat. The traveler felt them the way a pulse is felt at the wrist, steady and sure. Outside, the countryside passed in velvet shapes. A canal paled under rain like a silver ribbon half unwound. A willow leaned, loving the wet air. Far in a field, a single window burned amber and then dimmed again, as if blessing travelers as they went by. "Some letters," the fairy said, "are for what wakes you." She exhaled a little cloud over the clear room's door and wrote there, firm and kind, quiet only. Then, softer below it, "Worry, take off your shoes." The door gleamed. The lantern of quiet boundaries gave a tiny nod. The letters drifted into the wood grain of the night and returned as a comfortable hush. She turned to the harbor and knelt, if kneeling can happen in a window, drawing a few words along the curve of the resting boat. "The tide will carry this." The boat seemed to rise a finger's width on its own small silver sea. The traveler's eyes filled, not with trouble, but with that warm welling that comes when the body hears kindness and believes it. The tears did not fall. They simply cooled the lids like dew on grass, and then were gone, leaving a brighter calm behind. The fairy drew a new mist and spread it wide, as if unrolling a gentle banner. On it, she wrote a longer line, careful, rhythmic, soothing. "Breathe slowly, dear heart. The night is patient and soft." The writing made a sound so small it was almost not sound at all, a barely bell that rang under the skin. The rails answered in their silver hum. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. The lanterns answered in their dim, kind pulses. Comfort, patience, quiet courage, soft forgiveness. Enough, gentle sleep, silence at the edge. "Letters can be folded," the fairy said. "We fold them into the places inside you that keep warm things." She touched 3 spots on the glass that matched 3 places in the traveler forehead, chest, belly. And the sentence divided itself into 3 small notes. Each note drifted in, found its pocket, and rested there, simple as a sigh. She wrote more, small and round, each no more than a breath long, each one a gentle balm. Slow is holy, soft is strong, sleep is medicine. You are carried, you are kept. Between each letter, she paused. She let the rain speak. She let the window breathe. She let the rails hum. She let the traveler's chest rise and fall and find the quiet music inside. The fairy looked at the lantern of gentle sleep. Its light gathered and spread and gathered again, as tides do. She wrote beneath it, "Let go." The 2 words seemed almost to lift the traveler's hands without moving them, as if loosening invisible strings. Wrists softened, ankles softened. The jaw went slack in the sweetest way. The tongue settled like a little boat in a calm cove. There were letters for the small pains the body carries, tension held in places that forget how to unclasp, on the pain where a neck might rest, she wrote. Unwind where shoulders would be. Melt where the low back might ache from sitting and doing and holding. Ease where the folded hands lay quiet. Open, then rest. Each word a warm fingertip. Each word a patient palm. Each word a silent blessing. Would you like to write one? The fairy asked softly. She offered the needle, and though the traveler's hand did not lift, the fairy guided the idea of a hand. Together, they breathed a small cloud and traced a message in slow, clumsy, lovely letters, the kind that prove a tired heart is still kind to itself. It is enough to be here. When the line finished, the lantern of welcome in the square of small kindnesses brightened one shade, as if the whole map had nodded and said yes. Letters fade, the fairy whispered, that they may be read by the inside. They return, so you may trust them. She swept her palm gently across the window and watched the writing blur to soft rain and back again to clear words, as a shoreline comes and goes in a dream. Outside, a cutting tall with ferned walls embraced the train, a green tunnel darkened by night and deepened by rain. The sound changed to hush within a hush, a muffled cradle. The traveler drifted one step nearer sleep, then one more, then paused at the warm threshold where awareness grows thin and sweet. For the threshold, the fairy said, a final handful of notes. She breathed and wrote them one by one, little silver shells placed along the path. Hush, rest, home, warm, safe, sleep. The words spaced themselves like a soft ladder, each rung wide enough for a full breath. The traveler's gaze stepped them slowly, footfalls of sight, careful, kind, unhurried. At the last word, the eyes closed and opened once more, as if agreeing to return later from a gentle place. The fairy folded her hands. She did not write again. She stood a while as the rain wrote its own letters, long lines, small dots, a silver cursive no one needs to pronounce to understand. The lanterns breathed, the harbor held, the clear room waited with its quiet door. The map cradled all of it, soft and sure. When you wake in the night, the fairy whispered, voice barely more than the sound of wool, let one letter come, only one, safe or rest or soft or home. Place it on your tongue. Let it melt like a tiny sweet. Let it become a breath. Let the breath become sleep. She smoothed the glass 1, 2, 3 times, tucking the letters as one tucks love notes into a pocket. The window glowed a little lower, a little deeper. The rails sang their low hymn. The rain kept its gentle script, and the traveler, quiet, warm, peaceful, felt the message of the night settle under their ribs like a calm envelope addressed in silver. A letter to the sleepless heart, delivered at last, opened in quiet, read by breath, sealed again by sleep. Rain fell in fine, even threads, soft as breath pulled through wool. The train moved kindly, a cradle on silver rails. The carriage held its warm hush, lamplight folded into corners like well-loved blankets. On the window, the harbor rested, the lanterns breathed, the letters faded and returned. The map of soft places glowed like a memory with its edges tucked in. Everything was gentle, everything was slow, The fairy stood very still, as if listening to a loom begin to purr. Her drizzle hair shone in thin strands. Her dress looked more woven than ever a warp of hush, weft of rain. She lifted her needle of light and then set it down, not to stitch, but to touch the pane with both small palms. "We have gathered warmth," she whispered. "We have mapped rest and poured tea and lit lanterns and written letters. Now we will make a quilt, rain thread by rain thread, and tuck it around your thoughts." The traveler made a little sound that was not a word, only a sigh pleased to find a pillow. The breath circled. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. The shoulders softened. The hands, folded like sleeping wings, settled deeper into the lap. "Quilts begin with pieces," the fairy said, smoothing a patch of mist until it shone like quiet cloth. "We will choose calm squares from the night we have already made." With a fingertip, she traced the harbor, and it loosened from the glass like a fabric shape. Not gone, its echo remained, but now also here. A soft square in her hands, silver at the edges, moon pale within. "This patch," she murmured, "is harbor rest." She set it to the side on a wide pane of mist that began to look like a spread laid across a bed. The rails hummed in approval, a low, even note. From the lane of lantern footsteps, she lifted another piece curved like a gentle path, then coaxed it square with 3 small pats. "Lantern pathway," she named. A quiet rhythm stitched into its grain. From quiet bridge, she drew a narrow band and widened it, smoothing the fear out of it until it lay calm and honest. "Bridge of enough," she said, laying it beside harbor rest. The meadow of little commas sent up a patch speckled with tiny silver commas, each a resting place. "Pause, meadow," the fairy smiled. The square of small kindnesses offered a center square already warm to the eye. "Welcome square." The pantry of warm seconds yielded a patch that smelled like tea and hallway lamplight, and done for the day. "Warm seconds jar cloth," she murmured, pressing it flat with her palm. "Quilts need borders," she said, and the rain answered by drawing long, slender lines along the pane. She gathered them the way a weaver gathers warp threads, laying them like calm rails, border of gentle boundaries. She named the outer strips, pale as the light that pools on a floor when a door is left kindly ajar. She turned to the lanterns and invited them to lend their soft designs. Comfort gave a patch dimly glowing from within. Patience, one with slow rings. Quiet courage, a square stitched in a small, steady star. Soft forgiveness, a peace that seemed to breathe. Enough, a calm slab, the color of settled water. Gentle sleep, a deep blue square with a silver hush at its heart. Silence, a barely there border that made every other piece kinder. "Lantern pieces," the fairy said. "We sew them not to shine, but to be felt." The kindness stitches gathered from stations rose like friendly threads from the glass. The pairing stitch, 2 curved halves making a whole. The sharing cup, a small round motif. The steady loop, figure 8, untangled by design. The listening line, long and level. The catching hands, tiny cups. The umbrella kindness, a soft dome. The safe steps bow, a neat crossing that never tightens too hard. These will fasten the quilt, she told the traveler. "We will tie at every corner with a simple kindness." The mist spread on the window brightened, welcoming the pieces. "Now," the fairy breathed, "we lay them down." She placed Harbor Rest in the center bottom, where a body loves to feel held. Above it, Welcome Square, warm and patient. To the left, Pause Meadow. To the right, Bridge of Enough. Across the top edge, she set lantern pieces comfort, patience, quiet courage, like a row of little moons behind thin cloud. On the lower edge, she laid soft forgiveness and gentle sleep, then drew silence as a thin margin around everything, a quiet that was not empty, a space that let softness breathe. The quilt began to look whole. The carriage seemed to see it too. The air leaned closer, as if it wished to be tucked under as well. "We join them," the fairy said, lifting her needle of light. Not with hurry, with small, sure hands. She pierced the mist at a corner where Harbor Rest met Welcome Square and tied a pairing stitch. A tiny bell rang somewhere very far inside the glass, like a thimble tapping a safe rim. She tied the sharing cup at the next join, imagining steam rising where warmth would pass from square to square. Along the seam between Bridge of Enough and Pause Meadow, she set the steady loop, loop meeting loop, never pulling tight. Over the top row, she laid the listening line, a single, unbroken run that asked nothing and stayed. At each corner, catching hands. At each outer edge, umbrella kindness. At the places where a long day's wait might sag the cloth, safe steps bows, neat and kind. The needle moved slowly. The rain kept time. The rails hummed the four-note circle. Cloud, leaf, river, sea, in, out, in, out. The traveler watched the small movements with eyes heavy and content. The mind unspooled its last tidy knot. The body settled another inch into the seat, as dough rests deeper in a bowl, as a cat settles again, and then stops settling because it has found the place. Quilts, the fairy said, are also made of the music that lives in a room. She cupped her tiny ear to the window and smiled. The carriage hum will be our batting. The rail song will be our lining. The rain will be our top thread. The breath will be our needle's guide. She lifted the quilt and shook it once. Very gently, so gently, it was more an exhale than a shake. The patches breathed together. The lantern pieces dimmed and warmed in one low pulse. The border drew itself smooth. The square of small kindnesses relaxed, pleased to be near Harbor Rest. Welcome recognized pause. Bridge of Enough stood ready between the day and the pillow of night. "It is time to cover your thoughts," she murmured. The traveler made that small non-word again, a yes wrapped in wool. The fairy slid the rain thread quilt forward. It did not touch skin. It touched the idea of the traveler, the thoughts that flutter, the worries that wander, the rooms inside the heart that sometimes echo. The quilt lay over all of it, aligning to every shape, knowing every curve, leaving not a single edge to the cold of waking. First, she tucked the lower hem under the soles of thought, where feet of plans and tasks often stand too long. "Warm there," she said. "No standing now, only float." She pressed a safe steps bow and a catching hand into the fold. The souls of thought sighed. Then she smoothed the sides, left and right, as one smooths blankets along a bed. Soft along the ribs, she whispered. Soft along the old stories that lean there. Soft along the new stories that do not yet have names. She tied a pairing stitch where past and present met, and added the listening line so both could rest without choosing. Over the chest of thought, she laid welcome square, centered, sure. You are welcome to sleep, she said, as if the sentence itself were a balm. No proof required, no tally brought. Welcome, welcome. The letters she had written earlier safe, rest. Enough rose to meet the square like perfume rising to meet a flower. Over the shoulders of thought, she draped lantern pieces, comfort, patience, quiet courage, like 3 small shawls. Comfort warmed what still shivered. Patience lengthened every breath. Quiet courage promised morning, would not ask for anything the night had not prepared. At the brow of thought, she smoothed Pa's meadow, commas cooling the warm places where thinking runs. Pause is wisdom, the earlier letter had said, and the meadow agreed with its soft green silence. She set umbrella kindness above the nest of second chances, just in case a little wing stirred, and the wing, seeing its shelter, did not stir. Finally, she folded the top edge down an inch, then another, making a gentle collar across the forehead of thought. Into that folded hem, she stitched the tiniest motif of all, a little lullaby in stitch form. 3 dots for hush, 1 line for rest. There, she breathed, your nightshirt of quiet. The quilt answered by settling just a whisper of weight, the kind that makes a body say, yes, this. The rain softened to match it, like a singer lowering from melody to hum. The rails lowered too, their silver note, now the sound of a hand, moving slowly over hair, smoothing once, smoothing twice, smoothing a 3rd time for luck. Feel how the edges no longer lift, the fairy said. Feel how your thoughts no longer catch on the day. She cupped her palms and pressed the sides of the quilt very lightly, as if sealing in warmth. All that needs to be held is held. All that may be let go is let go. Outside, the country widened and breathed. A river crossed under the viaduct like brushed steel. A barn roof, wet and patient, held 2 puddles the moon might later borrow. In a far field, sheep were only shadows, but their shadows felt like wool. The traveler's eyelids lowered to a soft slit, then lowered again. The breath stretched. The jaw rested open a fraction, sweet and loose. The chin tipped toward the chest and rose, the motion of a boat agreeing happily with a tide. We will quilt the sounds now, the fairy whispered, so they do not jar, only cradle. She placed the listening line along the hum of the engine, and its tone became a deeper blanket. She tied steady loops around the rattle of a latch, and the small clink turned rhythmic, like beads counted by a patient hand. She set a sharing cup at the mouth of a distant cough, and the cough softened into a sigh. She lifted umbrella kindness above the soft snore 3 seats down, and the snore slid under it and slept. On the outer border, she wrote with thread, not letters, a repeating pattern of the four-note breath cloud: leaf, river, sea, stitched as little arcs and long curves, so the edges themselves breathed. "If you dream of the edge," she said, "the edge will breathe with you." The quilt, complete now, shone with a dim silver made of rain and care. It did not boast, it did not brag. It lay with the authority only gentleness knows. The fairy sat back on her heels, if windows have heels, and regarded her work with a small, satisfied hush. "Would you like one more layer?" she asked, a smile like steam on her lips. A coverlet of blessings, light as early fog. She did not wait for an answer, because the answer had already arrived in the deepening of the traveler's breath. She lifted both hands and drew the faintest veil over the quilt. A gauze made of porchlight memory, warm bread, patience, good chair, quiet, clean sheets promise. The lanterns glowed through it as if through soft muslin. "There," she said. "Your bed is made inside the night." The traveler's thoughts, once a room with many doors, felt like a room with one window, the window of the train, and the window now wore a quilt. Behind that quilt lay a harbor. Above that harbor hung lanterns. Along those lanterns drifted letters that said, "Enough, safe, rest." Beneath all of it, tea warmth pooled, a gentle hearth that would not go out. "If you wake," the fairy breathed, "touch the corner of the quilt with your mind. It will be there. It will pull itself back around you. It will remember your shape." She smoothed the glass once, twice, thrice. The last smoothing drew the rain into an even finer thread, invisible almost, the way the last line of a lullaby is more hum than word. The carriage deepened in quiet. The world outside grew dimmer, kinder. The rails sang softer still. "Rest," she said, her voice now a ribbon woven into the quilt itself. "Rest beneath rain thread and lantern light. Rest with warm seconds tucked and small kindnesses tied. Rest with the map under your cheek and the harbor at your feet. Rest until sleep lifts you and sets you softly on the shore of dream." The traveler, wrapped in what could not be seen and yet was perfectly felt, drifted nearer and nearer to sleep. The quilt held, the rain sowed, the train hummed, and the night, content as a mother with a settled child, watched over both with gentle silver eyes. Rain kept falling in thin silver threads. The train moved like a cradle through the dark. The carriage breathed its warm, wool-soft hush. On the window, the rain thread quilt lay smooth. Lanterns glowed in a small constellation. Letters slept and woke in pale mist. The map of soft places rested under the calm sheen of night. The fairy stood beside the lantern of comfort, her drizzle hair finer than ever, her dress a dim weave of moon and rain. She looked at the traveler, and her smile was the kind a lamp gives when a door is quietly closed. "It is time," she whispered, "to dim the lights, not to lose them, to let them become the soft last light before sleep." The traveler's breath slowed into the four-round circle. Cloud, leaf, river, sea. A small weight of contentment pooled at the wrists. The jaw rested. The eyes felt heavy in a sweet, silver way. "We begin at the edges," the fairy said. "Edges like shorelines at dusk, She lifted a fingertip and touched the thin border called silence. It answered with a softer hush, as if the night had drawn a light shawl over its own shoulders. The lanterns within seemed to breathe deeper, satisfied by the gentle shade. "Now the lanterns," she murmured, one by one, slow as a lullaby. She cupped her palms around Lantern of Patience and shaded it the way hands shade a candle in wind. The glow did not vanish. It drew in. It changed from speaking to listening. "Patience," she said gently. "You may sit even quieter now." The light agreed and settled to a small, steady ember. She moved to quiet courage. "You have done your work," she said in a voice like warm bread. "You may rest." The small star folded itself into a calm point and held there, faithful and mild. Soft forgiveness received a stroke across its silver face. "Thank you," the fairy breathed. "Be near, but be dim." The lantern fell and rose, in a slower rhythm now, like a tide nearly full, like lungs almost asleep. Enough had already grown still on Quiet Bridge. The fairy only nodded, and the bridge's pale span turned from silver to pewter to a soft, untroubling gray. "Enough," she said, "is always enough." At the square of small kindnesses, Lantern of Welcome lingered. It seemed to want to wait for one last late traveler. The fairy understood. "Welcome," she whispered. "You may keep a crack of doorlight." The lantern stayed, a thin wedge of gold at the edge of the square, friendly and small. Along the lane of lantern footsteps, the little lights swayed. The fairy dimmed them in order, as one blows out candles on a cake, not with force, but with the softest breath. First one, then one more, then one more. Each left behind a memory of glow, a warmth that did not require seeing. At the sea's idea, she touched Lantern of Drift. "Float," she said. "Float with even less." The larger pearl softened to a faint blur, like an oar dipped once and stilled, like an answer that need not be spoken at all. She saved two for last. Lantern of Gentle Sleep, Lantern of Sweet Dream. She placed her small hands around Gentle Sleep and pressed her palms to the glass. The lantern's light passed through her fingers and became a blue hush, deep as cotton, soft as dusk. "Soon," she told it, "soon, stay near." It obeyed and hovered like a dream, hovering just outside the door. Sweet dream she did not dim. Not yet. She lifted it. She moved it slightly downward toward the traveler's chest, as if to tie a ribbon above a pocket. "You will go with them," she said. "You will enter when the breath opens the gate." The lantern brightened a fraction and then matched the breath, pulse for pulse. "Now the letters," the fairy murmured. "They will blur, as all kind words do when sleep approaches. They will not be lost." She breathed on the pane where "you are safe" had been written. The words drifted, softened, and returned as a feeling, warm and round, without edges. Where rest is allowed had glowed. The mist curled like soft script, then smoothed into the quiet yes beneath the ribs. You did enough for today, slipped into the seam of the quilt, like a final stitch, unseen, holding everything. At the meadow of little commas, The small words, pause, is wisdom tilted, yawned, and lay down among the commas themselves. At the pantry of warm seconds, keep what warms you seeped into the jars with the silver lids, labeled now with calm, kept, 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 by the nest of second chances. Try again tomorrow, folded its wings, tucked its head, and slept. The fairy traced the body's outline on the glass with a gesture almost not seen. At the places where tension had been, she drew soft circles. Unwind at the neck became a slow, sweet release. Melt at the shoulders turned to a warm, sliding away. And ease at the low back draped itself like wool. Open, then rest at the folded hands opened, then rested. Now the map, she said, and her voice was the slow leaf note in the breaths round. She laid one palm on harbor rest and the other on the clear room. Beneath her small hands the map changed. Edges softened, turns rounded. Names grew thicker with kindness. Bay of tender patience turned to a single silver crescent. Quiet bridge became a smooth ribbon. Square of small kindnesses became a round hearth. Lane of lantern footsteps dissolved into one long path that led not away, but inward toward a gentle center. The map does not vanish, she said. It becomes simple. She lifted her hands, and the map gathered itself into a single, soft line, one droplet wide, beginning near the lanterns, passing the harbor, and curving toward a pale horizon drawn by rain. That is the path, the fairy whispered. The last light before sleep walks it. We will walk it with our eyes. She placed a fingertip at the path's beginning. The droplet under her finger brightened and grew. Not large, just present. The traveler's eyes followed. Slowly, so slowly, the droplet slid. It left a faint silver behind, like a pencil that prefers to whisper. It passed the lanterns, which now glowed like remembered stars. It crossed the quilt's seam, where pairing stitches tied old day to new rest. It curved by the clear room, whose door was open, whose one rule, quiet, only had become the air itself. Now a count, the fairy breathed. A soft count, 5 to enter, 5 to rest, 5 to drift. She counted on breath, and the train counted with her. 1, she whispered, and the droplet moved a finger's width. Inhale, cloud. 2, and it slid again. Pause, leaf. 3, slower, smoother. Exhale, river. 4, nearly there. Rest, sea. 5, and the droplet reached the gentle bend before the horizon and waited. Again, she said, softer. The counting became a tide. In, out, in, out. Each number a cushion, each number a hand on the shoulder. On the 10th, the droplet rounded the bend and found the last small straight. The carriage leaned into a long, even stretch of track. The rails hummed like a lullaby's last line. The rain narrowed its sound to something fine and even, like silk drawn through fingers. The air in the carriage agreed and settled one measure deeper. Sweet dream, the fairy said, and touched the lantern at the traveler's chest. It answered with a slow silver pulse. The pulse drifted down the arms and into the hands. It drifted up the neck and behind the ears. It drifted into the eyes and made them softer than soft. "Gentle sleep," she said, and the blue hush above the window lowered the night by one shade. Lamps in the carriage dimmed themselves, as if a thoughtful host had turned them down in a room where people have begun to drift. The fairy drew her smallest circle yet, a ring no larger than a teardrop, around the last inch of path. "This inch," she whispered, "belongs to dream." She looked to the traveler, bright and tender as rain. "When you are ready, the droplet will pass." She did not push it. She did not pull it. She stood still. She listened to the rails. The rails eased. She listened to the rain. The rain evened. She listened to the breath. The breath rounded and grew quiet at its edges, like wool after warm water. "Your eyes may close," she said. "You may let the droplet finish without watching. It will finish kindly. It knows the way." The traveler's eyes closed. Not tight, not shut. Closed like petals closing at night. The fairy waited long enough to make patience feel like love. Then she touched the pane with one soft fingertip. The droplet moved. It slipped into the small ring of dream. It crossed the horizon made of rain. The path behind it glimmered, and then gentled into the gray blue of deep night. The map turned to a single soft hush. The lanterns rested. The letters slept inside the quilt. The quilt breathed with the rails. The rails breathed with the rain. The rain breathed with the traveler. "If you wake," the fairy breathed, so quiet the glass alone could hear. "You know the path. It is one droplet wide. It is one lantern deep. It is one breath long." She smoothed the pane once, twice, thrice. With each smoothing, the world dimmed a little further into peace. Outside, fields became only feeling. A hedgerow turned to the idea of shelter. A far light on a hill became a kind memory. And then nothing at all but warmth. The fairy stood her small watch by the harbor. She did not stitch. She did not write. She only kept the last light small and tender and true. A shy pearl at the edge of sleep that could be found by anyone who looked with closed eyes. "Rest," she whispered to the traveler, to the window, to the rain, to herself. "Rest in the last light. Rest in the soft path. Rest in the quiet that goes on and on." The train went on. The night went on. The fairy's hands folded like two small birds under a wing, and the traveler, held by rain, held by quilt, held by lanterns now dim and dear, drifted through the gentle door the droplet had just crossed, entering the blue country where sleep receives every quiet thing and keeps it safe. Night kept its gentle hush. Rain, fine as silver thread, stitched the dark to the glass. The train moved like a cradle through a world that had grown softer than a sigh. In the carriage, lamps rested at a low, wool-warm glow. Coats breathed on their hooks. A shoe, politely loosened, leaned against its pair. The window wore the rain-thread quilt like a quiet sky. Lanterns had dimmed to small, faithful embers. The map had folded itself into one soft line that led inward and kind. The traveler floated at the edge of deep sleep, held by the even hum of rails. breath rounded in its circle cloud. Leaf, river, sea steady as tide in a blue cove. The fairy stood watch by the harbor, mild as lamplight, drizzle hair silver and fine. Her dress, woven of hush and rain, moved like a very small breeze in a safe room. "We have come far," she whispered, voice as low as a lullaby's last note. Now the blue hour opens. Rain becomes silver dust. The country ahead is soft. Outside, the night changed shade. It was not darker, only deeper like water when the moon takes one step closer to its reflection. The fields smoothed into calm plains, the hedgerows into kind lines. A slow brightness, almost blue, almost dawn, lay across the land like a folded shawl. It was the hour when dew dreams of arriving, when quiet gathers both hands and holds. The fairy lifted one palm and touched the pane. The harbor answered with a slow, contented glow, as a cat answers a soft call by opening one eye. The small boat, its work already done, rocked once, as if to say yes, then stilled in place. "This is the soft country," the fairy murmured. "There are no stations. There are no clocks. There are no names that ask you to hurry. Only gentle land. Only gentle water. Only gentle sky." As the train glided on, the window showed what the soft country wished to share, scenes woven from rain and hush, simple and safe. A meadow, blue with mist, lay like a quilt smoothed by patient hands. A low pond held the moon's thought, not the moon, only its kind thought. Beyond, a hill rose round and steady, not to be climbed, only to be looked at with restful eyes. The fairy guided sight, as if leading someone through a quiet house by candle. "Here is the meadow of nearly dream," she said, "grass soft as breath, paths that are not paths, only seams in the mist. You may cross without footprints. The meadow forgets your steps to keep them safe." The traveler's thoughts moved over it, the way a hand moves over linen, slow, smoothing, sure. No snags, no edges, only the sense of being held by something gentle and large. They passed a small stand of trees, not tall, not small, simply right. The leaves wore rain like pearls. The trunks leaned in the way friends lean when sharing silence. At the center, a bench waited neither new nor old, its wood dark with weather, its seat already warm from the idea of rest. "This is the listening grove," the fairy said, stroking the glass until the bench looked nearer. "The air here keeps kindness saved from many nights. Sit in memory and be heard by quiet itself." The traveler, without moving, felt the bench accept them, felt the grove's silence as a shawl. The rails hummed their blessing. The rain set a small cadence, soft as knitting needles in gentle hands. Farther on, the soft country opened into water wide, but not wide enough to bring ache, smooth, blue-gray, cool as a clean sheet turned over a bed. Along its edge stood small posts with round tops, like friendly heads. Between them hung a rope of light, not bright, not heavy, just there, swaying in the hush. "Sure of simple answers," the fairy whispered. "Here, decisions sleep. They are safe to leave. The morning will lift them gently if they are wanted. If not, the tide will carry them as soft as paper boats to a cove, where questions are content to be stones. The traveler's chest loosened a fraction more, a soft belt unbuckled, a tight thought unknotted. The breath went in and out and made no splash. The train glided under a bridge that felt like a lowered eyelid, then out again into a blue corridor where light gathered itself along the rails. Somewhere, a village dreamed in house shapes and chimney hums. Curtains, paler than milk, stood a little open, and behind them, warmth moved like a friendly tide. The fairy smoothed the window with one slow palm. "The soft country is not a place you enter," she said. "It arrives where you are, when rain is kind, when night remembers you, when you let your name be spoken in a gentle voice by no one at all." She leaned near to the glass, and her breath wrote one last line that did not appear as letters, only as a feeling shaped like a phrase. "You are already here." The lanterns, small and true, answered with a pulse like heartbeat at rest. Comfort settled under the ribs like a soft animal. Patience lay along the breath like a ribbon. Quiet courage stood by the door of sleep without standing guard. Simply present, simply near. Soft forgiveness smoothed the brow and did not speak. Enough laid both hands on the day and folded it like a paper boat. The boat drifted toward the harbor and dissolved into silver dust. "Now," the fairy said, "we let night tidy what remains. We do not help. We do not reach. We do not lift. Night is very good at tidying." On the window, the rain thread quilt gathered its edges and tucked them twice. The listening line became a soft seam under which sound slid and turned friendly. The steady loops, set earlier around small rattles and clicks, spun once and rested. The umbrella kindness tilted over the car and made a wide, quiet arc. The pairing stitches held what had been parted. The catching hands cupped what might still roll. Safe steps bows lay flat and kind, the way pathways lie in early light. The train crossed a plain where the blue hour brightened by one delicate shade. Not dawn, only the thought of dawn practicing in the east. The soft country drew nearer in feeling, the way a good chair draws nearer before you sit. The fairy looked at the traveler and warmed her smile by one small degree. "If you would like," she whispered, "we may choose a home in the soft country, not to move into, to visit when you sleep." She lifted her needle and, with the care of a seamstress setting a patch on a favorite sleeve, drew a cottage upon the glass. The cottage rose from rain, as if it had always been there. A door, simple, 2 windows, kind, a roof with room for weather to love it, a lamp in the left window, low as a whisper, a cup on the sill, catching a slow drip of silver that would never spill. "This is Cottage Gentle," the fairy said. "Its walls are made of your slow breaths, stacked in careful rows. Its floor is the rail song, wooden and good. Its shelves hold jars of warm seconds with silver lids. Its bed is the rain thread quilt, already turned down. Its porch looks over the meadow of nearly dream and the shore of simple answers. Inside, every chair is the right chair." She laid a small path of pale drops from the harbor to the door. The path did not need steps. It met the traveler with the kindness of a host who knows you are tired and says, "Come when you can. We already put the kettle on." The traveler's eyes closed. opened, then closed again. The lids were heavy and pleased. The chin tipped and returned. The breath slowed to the pace of a clock that never worries about the hour. "We do nothing more," the fairy murmured. "Sleep is already riding you into the soft country. Even if you wake for a small while, you will find the path again. It is one lantern deep. It is one droplet wide. It is one breath long." The carriage leaned into a long curve. The world beyond the glass leaned with it and did not spill. The soft country's blue deepened, then steadied. The fairy placed both hands upon the window, the way a mother places both hands upon a blanket. When she has tucked a child and pressed the hush in, gentle and sure. "Blessings for your night," she said, and the words were round and warm. "Blessings for your breath, blessings for your bones and your brow and your dear steady heart. Blessings for the dream that is coming and for the dream that will follow it. Blessings for the morning to arrive in soft shoes with soft light at the right time, not before." The rain answered with a smaller sound, a tiny silver yes. The rails answered with a deeper note, a slow lull. The cottage window held its mild gold. The meadow folded its mist. The shore did what shores do best, stayed. The fairy dimmed even her own light until she was a seam in the pane, a silver thread no brighter than breath. "Sleep," she whispered, as if speaking to the night and the window and the traveler and herself all at once. "Sleep gentle, sleep soft, sleep peaceful. Let dream carry you over the quiet water and set you down upon the soft silver shore." The traveler crossed. No splash, no start. Only the warm drift of a boat that knows its harbor. Only the quiet slide of a name said kindly by no one and by everyone at once. Only the silver dust of rain blessing lids and lips, and the small space behind the ribs where tender things keep watch. The train went on, a cradle unbrightened blue. The soft country received its guest and kept the room warm, and the fairy small seamstress of rain and glass closed the last fold of the rain thread quilt and spoke her final wish, soft as steam. "May your sleep be deep and kind. May your dreams be silver and sweet. May your night be safe, warm, peaceful. May your heart wake rested, and your morning come in quiet light." Then she stood, hands folded, eyes bright and calm, and let the world be still. The window breathed, the rain hummed, the rails rocked a steady cradle song, and the traveler slept, safe and dear, in the soft country, under a gentle blessing that did not end.